Guardian. Guardian? Eyes up, Guardian.
Terrible transitions. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Hi there. It's me, Christian. Hi. Welcome to the first episode of Eyes Up Guardian, I should say my, because there's no other co-host here. My Destiny-themed podcast. This first episode's going to be rough. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I kind of hodgepodge this thing together despite sitting on it for weeks like, oh, what am I going to do about it? What should I put in? Do we have opening? Do we have outro music? Spoilers, there's no outro music. What are we going to talk about? Because the longer I sit and don't actually do the show, the more information keeps spewing out about Destiny 2. So this morning I got up and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, we're going to do it. Sorry. I'm going to have to edit that because we want this one to be family friendly. Family friendly podcast. So yeah, I went ahead and put together the show notes because even as recent as yesterday, we were still getting more news about Destiny 2. So that being said, context of the show is really just going to be covering news, events, lore, things like that about Destiny. I kind of got the idea when we had been doing Friday Night Smite as a Smite-centric podcast with Mezzafesto and Sapper Woody, and I like doing the weekly research and putting stuff together from developer updates and tweets and stuff put in the subreddit, so it kind of made sense that go ahead and let's carry that over to a game like Destiny, where I'm already in love with the game and the lore and everything behind it, and what better time to do it than when we have a new game about to come out. So let's capitalize on that timing and make a show, grab some new viewers, and see how it goes. So this first episode's kind of going to be just that. We're going to be spewing forth a ton of information, and as the weeks go by, covering whatever new content comes out. If we start hitting dry spells, because let's be honest, in Destiny 1 we had a lot of downtime between expansions, and then even then the lore, unless you're delving into the Grimoires, was kind of lacking. So what we can do in those instances is delve into lore, maybe focus on a specific character, or I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. And if this one, I'd like to see it have legs where we can keep doing it on a weekly basis. But if not, maybe we can do it in seasons. I don't know. It's going to be a journey, you and I, going along and figuring this out together. So, again, very bare bones this first episode until I can kind of figure out what we're going to do with it. So, Destiny 2, what do we know? What do we know? We kind of killed every big bad guy that we could in Destiny 1, from Vex, was it? The first, the base game, then we moved on to Crota, and then we moved on to the Fallen, and then we had the Taken King, and then Siva. Every major group or faction that we came across, we found the big bad in it, and then we killed them. Except the Cabal. We only fought fragments, portions, partial groups, elements of the Cabal Empire itself. We never took out their major big bad. I think the closest we had was the Skyburners in the Taken King, when we had to do that mission Outbound Signal, and then the brothers themselves that strike. So Destiny 2 the story ties directly into the first one, in that that message that was sent out in Outbound Signal was received by a faction called the Red Legion, which is Red Legion is it's led by a just general D-bag, Gaul. So Gaul is, when I did the research on this, there are some people saying he's the emperor of the Cabal Empire. Others are saying he's just the commander of the Red Legion. I don't know if he is the emperor. I couldn't find anything factual within, Bungie's official stores as far as him being the Emperor. Everything just kind of points to Commander of the Red Legion. Now, I don't know if Red Legion is a faction within the Cabal Empire itself or the all-encompassing entity itself, but I'm telling you what I know here, and I don't want to spread misinformation. So, Gaul is a firm believer that the Traveler made a mistake in choosing humanity as the bearers of the light and getting the essentially superpowers. So he goes ahead and storms Earth with the Red Legion, takes down the last city, locks up the Guardian tight, captures the Speaker, and then the Guardians themselves can now die. So for those, not in the know, and I don't know why you'd be listening to a Destiny focused podcast if you kind of weren't into it already, but the Guardian is a otherworldly being who is moved across the galaxy, fleeing from an entity called the Darkness, winds up on Earth, and then gives them powers through something called the Light. And it's just that, they gain superpowers. One of the big perks of being a Guardian is that you cannot die. You have a little companion, little robot that follows you around called the Ghost that will go ahead and just revive you anytime you die. It is one of the key building blocks in Destiny lore, especially when you're talking about Guardians themselves. Taken case in point, the Lords of... it's not the Iron Banner. I'm doing a Sorry, swears. I'm doing a Destiny themed podcast, and I can't remember their names. But Lord Caesar Salad, Iron Banner folks, Lords of Winter. No, God, this is bad. Anyway, their big deal was, they would go ahead and fight anybody and just die over and over again until they emerge victorious. Same thing with Commander Zavala. When we got his cinematic trailer a few weeks back, when he first came about and was brought back to life, he died a lot, and we see that. And as he would die, he'd come back, gain new armor, weapons, get stronger, better, faster, until we see him as the just almighty titan that he is now. So that's where we are. Gaul has put a barrier around the Traveler itself and has taken away our communication with the ghosts, and we can no longer res, and our powers are gone. But I mean, if we're going to theorize here, the entire game cannot be about us getting that power back. I imagine it's going to be in the first couple missions where we do go ahead and figure out a way to bring down that barrier or other means to fuel our powers, because it's not Destiny unless you have the powers. So, getting into that then with the powers themselves, we have 3 subclasses like we did in the last game, and there are 3 new ones which are replacing other subclasses that we had previously. So we're not getting anything new and fancy in addition to the old 3. In fact, Eurogamer broke it down pretty well as far as there were 2 subclasses revealed for each of the primary classes. And then they actually had screenshots of the skill trees, which are vastly different than what we had in the first Destiny. So the Titan, the 2 that were known at this time are the Sentinel, which is replacing the Defender class, and then the Striker, which was the default starter class from the first game. So the Sentinel, replacing the Defender class, he now has a shield, kind of like Captain America, that replaces the Ward of Dawn bubble. The shield itself can be used to block. You can chuck it, much like Captain America, and is overall very powerful. It seems to be the Void-focused ability or subclass for Titans themselves. Hunters have the Arc Striker, which is replacing the Blade Dancer subclass, and then they do still have the Gunslinger, which has, from what I've read and heard, is seeing subtle changes, nothing too major, but it's different enough. The Arc Striker now has an electric staff and can move quickly, much like the Blade Dancer, but that one previously had daggers. Warlock has the Voidwalker returning, and Dawnblade is replacing the Sunsinger. So Rather than just being super awesome fiery people, they're now super awesome fiery people with swords that they can throw that explode. So, like the Hammer of Soul for the sun-based Titan subclass in the first game, they can throw swords now and make them explode. And I'm going to be honest, like, I rolled Defender Titan a lot because I thought it was super useful for party play. And then when the Hammer of Soul came about, I'm like, I don't know. And then I tried it. I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And I'd always get bummed when we would have rules on strikes that favored other classes besides solar damage. So, is it going to be enough to take me away from the Titan class? I doubt it, but I don't know. I'm definitely going to be tinkering around with that. So the talent tree itself, if you remember in the first Destiny, we had different columns that you had your abilities. Each column was related to like one ability, and then you could change different perks or stats about it. Say for like grenades, you could change, is it a sticky grenade? Does it do this? Does it do that? This other stat, does it give me speed? Does it give me power? So on and so forth. And then you could kind of change them on the fly, and one wasn't dependent on the other. That's changing in Destiny 2 in the sense that we now have a talent tree where ability 3 is dependent on what you picked for ability 2 and ability 1. And I talk with my hands a lot, so video viewers, you're getting quite the show. Audio, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to hope that my tone of voice can infer all the excitement I have here. But there is the main hub on the ability itself, which is your super ability, and then you have different, like you have your grenades, you have your passive abilities, they're all on different tiers. Now the passive abilities themselves, which would be like your speed, your toughness, other things like that, those are on two different branches, I guess, of 4. So there's 2 branches of 4, and again, unlike First Destiny, you can't kind of bounce back and forth between. When you set yourself on one of those branches for passives, you're stuck on it. You can't go 1, and then 2, 3, and then 4. Again, audio, I'm kind of going up and down here. You're kind of locked in. So it's all standard kind of RPG stuff. I'd be interested to see how it actually plays out once the game releases. And again, that's just what this first episode is we're going to vomit forth all the information that I was able to gather, put it into one source, and then as the weeks go on, we'll break it down a little bit here. So we have 4, again, according to Polygon, 4 planets that we're starting with. We have Earth, Titan, which is a moon on Saturn, Nessus, which is a planetoid, and Io, a moon of Jupiter. So beyond that, beyond Earth, no previous locations that we had in Destiny 1 are going to be returning. So that means like the summit at the Iron Temple, probably the tower, and the Russian tundra surrounding the rockets. Those areas aren't coming back. Now, not to say we won't get them in future expansions, this is just all what we know now. So, the social zone that we're getting to start off with is going to be the farm, which is located just outside the European Dead Zone. Now, I know you're saying here, well, the European Dead Zone doesn't... What's up, Yellow? It goes fairly well. The European Dead Zone, you'll remember from the first game, was a PvP zone, and it focuses... I always thought it was interesting because we have nice new environments compared to some of the more traditional sci-fi elements that we had in the other zones in the game. So to see them expand upon that, it excites me, and I've always had a thing for, you know, Victorian era European architecture and whatnot, so it excites me. But the farm itself is going to be our sole social space within Destiny 2. the reasoning behind that is that in Destiny 1, they said whenever they had introduced a new social space like Fellwinter Peak or the Reef, it would break up the player base, and they would only go to certain zones, like some would only go to the tower, some would only go to the Reef. And I could definitely see how that would limit interaction, but I want to say we would only get like up to 16 Guardians per social space. So if they're going to group everybody into one in the second game, are we increasing player count inside of these zones themselves? Food for thought. And again, they said there's only going to be one, so we don't get the fractured player base, but you know, things change. We might get different stuff here. So kind of continuing on in that with the idea of new social zones like the European Dead Zone, a big complaint in Destiny 1 was that we didn't have a whole lot to do within the zones themselves. You had patrol missions and then your regular story missions. So they're fleshing a lot of that out. We now have adventures and lost sectors, or is it lost sectors? Yeah, lost sectors and flashpoints. So adventures now have different enemy encounters, each with their own mechanics and rewards. Lost sectors are kind of like hidden mini dungeons where you can find markers around the map that kind of lead you toward the entrance. You go through, and then there are bosses essentially in there that have special loot. Flashpoints are going to be your public events that are making a return, and of course we still have patrol beacons, but a lot more stuff to do within each zone, and it's not going to be a matter of, you know, going out to orbit and coming back in. You can find things organically and proceed along. Beyond that, we also now have guided games, which are essentially looking for group posts by clans as far as, oh hey, we're running this raid, we're running this strike, go ahead and you can sign up and we'll get you moved in. It's kind of like how the Xbox does it with its looking for group system, that you can post what it is you're doing, how many slots you have open, when it's going to start, and then recruit people for it, except it's now going to be managed through I don't know if it's the companion app, but I know it's not in the game itself. We don't have a dedicated looking for group system beyond the guided games. We'll see how that all plays out. That was my biggest complaint as far as the first Destiny, was that we didn't have that looking for group system, whereas WoW has like looking for raid. It made it very hard to complete a lot of the end game content. You had to be social and outgoing. New weapon types and slots are now, in the first game we had our primary weapon, we had our secondary weapon, and our heavy weapon. Now the primary was going to be like your hand cannons, scout rifles, assault rifles. Secondary was like shotguns, sniper rifles, fusion rifles, and then your heavy weapons were like your rocket launchers, your swords, your LMGs, things like that. It's now been changed up that you have essentially two primary weapon slots that you can mix and match. You have your kinetic weapons, which are going to be hand cannons, your SMGs, auto rifles, scout rifles, energy weapons, and these are going to be your elementals. So your kinetic weapons no longer have elemental buffs to them like they did in the previous game. Elemental weapons are now your energy weapons, and these are what are specifically designed to burn down shields, shut down enemy Guardian supers, and things like that. And in the interview, or the Q&A session that game director Luke Smith did, he hinted that you will be able to change elemental damage types for these weapons. So say you have we'll just use an example here, just a gun that you really, really like the stats of, you like how it operates, you like how it handles and feels, but the elemental damage type it does isn't necessarily good for this week's modifiers on strikes. In theory, you will be able to change that, and I'm curious to see if they implement it a bit further where, Gary Toucham, we're going over a bit of Destiny 2. So what's happening is, what I'm wondering if they're going to do is if we get a little more in-depth involvement where we can essentially hot swap the elemental bonuses to different weapons. Like, okay, this particular enemy type is susceptible to solar damage, this one's susceptible to void, and as we proceed through and have different pockets, you can kind of switch out the weapon, kind of like an ammo type. Don't know, pure speculation, hopefully, but you know what, I'm okay with them relegating it to its own different weapon type. Beyond that, Crucible is now being limited to 8 players total. So if you're into things like Trials of Osiris, which was 3-on-3, it's now going to be 4-on-4. Free-for-alls are going to be, you know, 1 versus 7. And then, of course, the other different play modes as they're introducing, like essentially plant the bomb, things like that. Those are going to be our 4-on-4 modes. So it's down from the 6-on-6. It makes it more intimate, but it also makes it easier to put together a team to just go in and wreck. Kind of like what we do with Friday Night Smite with a dedicated team of 3. Definitely can, you know, change the balance. Now with 4 randos, I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. Beyond that, here we did have that Q&A session with the, again, game director Luke Smith, which came out a few days ago. Now, it was mixed of a bunch of different questions. Some were a little more serious and others were more jokey. Like, he started off with the loot cave in Destiny 1, you know, are we going to get an equivalent about that? Why was it taken away? And essentially it broke down that no, we're not going to have a loot cave Destiny 2, and the reason we got rid of it is we didn't want to have that one person standing in front of the cave 3 years later still shooting it to get, you know, junky Ingrams. Kind of in that same jokey manner, we do find out the wizard did indeed come from the moon, and then they go into a bit more as far as, well, are the Vex going to be playing a specific role in relation to the Red Legion and Destiny 2? Not so much. Why is Vex on the Cade on the Vex planet? He's not actually looking for anybody. Apparently he's looking for a way to compensate for our lost powers and then take down Gaul. Again, I imagine it's going to be mostly in that first set of missions, because we got to get our powers back sooner rather than later. And kind of what Gary Toucham here is relating to in the chat is that it was kind of, not necessarily, I wouldn't say boring, but it definitely felt kind of like a generic shooter, and especially with the classes they got us set up with. The Titan that I had in Destiny 1 was very, very fast. He was a quick, deadly force of nature that was meant to be reckoned with, especially when we went with the solar subclass. When I played the void-based Titan in the Destiny 2 intro, which was that first essentially story mission, the Sentinel, he was slow. He was a walking tank. He was a burden to work with, and it made me really nervous about how the game itself was going to play out. Are they going to take my favorite class and effectively ruin it? Am I going to have to move towards probably a hunter if I want the speedy class? And there's kind of two answers. Short answer is yes, classes are going to handle differently now. Titans are your walking tanks. Hunters are going to be your quick, deadly assassins. Warlocks are going to be your teleporty harbingers of death. But getting back to the talent tree itself and the passive abilities, you can augment the characters themselves. So if you want a quick Titan, it is still possible. Now, understandably, there's going to be trade-off where if you want quicker abilities, you're going to lose probably more armor abilities. So it's going to be really coming down to your individual play style. So it makes me nervous and intrigued at the same time, because I loved my Titan. He was by far one of my favorite characters in any game. And the fact that we're going to have a drastic change to him by default, am I going to be able to tweak him and kind of get him back in that same space that I'm used to, or am I going to have to roll to a different class? Don't know yet. In relation to the weapons themselves, the power weapons, that was one thing I too noticed in the beta, is that we didn't have a lot of ammo for them, and apparently this was a design choice. Anytime you spawn into a PvP map or into a PvE mission, essentially, you have no ammo for that weapon by default. It is relegated to you finding major enemy types, so essentially any enemy that doesn't have that standard red bar of health, they have the yellows or shields, they're going to be dropping that power ammo for you. Tying into that then is that the energy weapons, the elemental weapons, it is more of a matching game. So Destiny 1 had this. It wasn't really all that well explained, as far as like we only have arc burn, we have solar burn, we have void burn, but those were for like the heroic strikes, and that was essentially just a modifier. Whereas in this one, there will be different colored elements for different enemies. So at that point, you do want to go ahead and play that matching game, because when you match the element to that enemy type, so like solar on solar, it will do bonus damage to them, and then it will also cause an AoE explosion that only damages the enemy for extra amounts, but then stuns them. So it's a lot more in depth than the previous one was, and this was the bit that really confused me the most, is because again, Destiny 1 didn't portray this information all that well. Destiny 2, kind of in the same boat. It took reading over a couple different sites to pin this down, and it makes sense now with the different weapon types and slots that we're getting. But I'm still kind of bummed that I can't switch from shotgun to sword back to an assault rifle or a scout rifle. So hopefully a system gets put into place where it makes hot swapping weapons that much easier, because versatility is good. He then gets into the private matches on Destiny 2. Are we going to see those implemented in the first few updates after launch? Really not known at this point. And in a similar vein, are we going to see a public test realm being utilized by Bungie now that they are incorporated into the Battle.net system? Because Blizzard is very well known for doing this with, like WoW and Overwatch specifically. And while he said that he likes the idea of a public test realm, they're probably not going to go down that route, because he essentially wants players to be surprised when content comes out. And I can definitely vouch for that. Being an avid WoW player, I typically know what's going to be going down well before that patch hits. So like 7.3, we've known about it for months and months because it's been on PTR, it's been data mined and things like that. And Destiny, I don't necessarily see the need for it. For balancing changes in PvP, maybe, but he said it best. You want to have a surprise for the players, and that's kind of what I want with this here. One big thing that they are doing away with that was in the previous game is the Grimoire. Grimoire is going away, so no longer do you have to get 2,000 kills with a hand cannon or 50 kills with a grenade of this type to unlock a new Grimoire card, that it might not even be in order of the stuff you've unlocked to get more lore, which then you have to go to the Destiny app or to the website to read about. It was a terrible, terrible implementation. And so they're adding the lore system into the game now, where you can read different, essentially cards that contain information inside the game. It's not going to pull you out. So that's good. When it comes to things like perks and carryovers from the first game into the second game, they're remaining very tight-lipped about that. The only thing he did say is that the Guardians are going to be introduced. They're going to come into the world differently than new Guardians. So there's caveats to that. So if you were a console player like PS4 or Xbox One and now you're moving to PC, you're not going to get those same benefits. You have to stay on the same console. So for myself, being an Xbox player, I have to continue playing on Xbox to get whatever it is that they're hinting at. Can't go Xbox to PS4, and vice versa. So it sucks for those that are making the jump to PC and had been playing the game for a very, very long time. I would like to see them implement something along the lines of not necessarily cross-play, but cross-save. So if I get to level 20 and clear the first heroic strike on Xbox, I want to have it that progress tracked on PC, because PC, they support up to 4K, unlimited frame rate. There's a lot of different perks to playing on PC. And maybe you want to do your solo content on PC, and then you have your group of friends that play on PS4 that you do your strikes and raids with. A lot of different reasons to do cross-platform, even if they don't support the cross-platform play. That being said, in a semi-related note, Microsoft has stated they are open up to cross-platform play, but Sony is remaining mum on the entire subject. Kind of like we had last generation, where Xbox 360 was dominating the market. Sony was open to cross-platform, but Xbox or Microsoft wasn't, because it doesn't really benefit whoever's leading the market. It only benefits those in second or third place. So while we probably will never get cross-platform in this console generation, I'd still like to see, again, cross-saves. We had it with Xbox 360 and Xbox One, PS3, and PS4 until, what was it, Rise of Iron came out, and then that stopped because that expansion didn't hit the older gen consoles. Wow, we're actually blowing through this pretty quick. Pretty good. Running a little over time, though. So, we've had a ton of trailers then that did come out. We had the one that I mentioned that focused on Zavala. We've had several character-focused ones, which I felt were kind of cheap. They were more vignettes that, oh, well, this happened in this trailer, this one happened in this trailer, and it's just little clips focused on that specific character, like a Korra or Cade or Zavala, with a little text superimposed on it. It gives you an idea for the character itself, but it's kind of like fluffing out an essay that you're writing. Like, I need an extra paragraph. How do I do that? Well, let's reiterate points that I made earlier and condense it into this one paragraph. That being said, they did get the live action trailer out on Thursday, last Thursday, and it was very similar to the first live action trailer we had for the very first game, where it's going to a classic rock track. We're introducing the three different classes with the the Titan, the Warlock, and the Hunter, and there's a good bit of humor injected into it. And this instance, we have Cade 6 rallying a group of Guardians, saying, in almost a fourth wall breaking moment, like, okay, you're new to Destiny, here's everything that's changed, And this is where the regioning comes in. For, like, America, we had ketchup and mustard are gone. In the UK, you had red sauce and mustard are gone. And they had different things like your mom's brunch or birthday parties, which was a nice touch. They're definitely playing to the regions. But the unifying element, the one thing that is gone entirely for every region, puppies. Puppies are gone. They are no more. They are dead. Long gone. Now, we don't know if it was Gaul that wiped them out, but I am kind of inferring that everything else is gone. They went away a long time ago during the, what would they call it? The collapse, when everything kind of went to hell and we went back to the Dark Ages. Now, I don't remember seeing a dog in Destiny, so they've probably been gone for a while, but essentially, the rallying cry is going to be, for the puppies against Gary. And then kind of wrapping up here, we do have different promotions that are rolling out for the game, much like Red Bull did for the first game, and the Taken King, I think they came back for. Rockstar and Pop-Tarts are teaming up with Destiny for special promotions, so you can go to any store that carries them, and when you buy the item, the Pop-Tarts, there will be a code on the receipt that you can then text in or redeem on the site, and that's going to be mostly like XP boosts. If you go to Target stores specifically, there is a special Sparrow that you can get. Rockstar, on the tabs themselves, will have the codes, to redeem. And quoting from their site here, it's going to unlock in-game weapons and gear. Every code also earns prize entries for the chance to win Destiny 2 themed motorcycles, PS4 Pro systems, and special edition games. So there's a little bit more with the Rockstar, but all in all, it's not promoting a healthy diet. I'll probably pick up a couple boxes or cans of each just to... I'm a sucker. I did it with Mountain Dew and Titanfall 2. I got the stupid Mountain Dew themed skin for my Titan. So I'll probably do it with this, but people that look at the subreddit, folks that have been looking to see if stores are carrying them, most likely not. Somebody did vouch that they work in a Pepsi facility, and they just now started getting the pallets in, which would make sense that we're not seeing it in stores yet if it's not having been shipped out. And again, we're also then reliant on the individual merchants placing the orders for the new stuff. Depending on the store you go to, you might be still seeing promotions for Despicable Me 3 on Pop-Tarts. So it might take a while for the stock to rotate, but go ahead, keep an eye out. It's not much, but if you're into collecting all this different stuff, unfortunately, you now have to buy energy drinks and Pop-Tarts. But yeah, that kind of wraps up everything that, in a very quick fashion, everything we know about Destiny 2. Game does release September 6th, which is a Tuesday, and for consoles, and then October 24th for PC. Myself probably will start doing the live streaming Tuesday, if not starting Monday at midnight when the game launches, and we'll kind of go through it together. Beyond that, if you are interested in playing with a group of folks, Horror of Casitas, we do have a clan page that has just been recently updated. Go ahead and head over to bungie.net, search for Horror of Casitas. I'll also have the link in the show notes, and join up with a group of like-minded individuals that can't talk but know how to shoot guns. And yeah, we'll see how this episode goes, and hopefully have it up in some podcast feeds later. Otherwise, you can check the archives on Twitch and or YouTube, and then we'll make it a regular thing. Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Time. You guys have a good one.